Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex from SeemsGoodMagic.com here, and welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod, your weekly video podcast for completely custom Magic the Gathering sets. And this week we got a good one as well. This one's a comedy movie, and the crew has just successfully kickstarted the sequel. Actually, I don't know if they kickstarted it. I think they Indiegogo'd it, but I think they asked for $1 million and they raised like $4 million. So just a huge cult following with very little to few famous people. So it really was like a sort of rags to riches story for this crew of comedians. That's right. We're doing Super Troopers. Yeah, Super Troopers was hilarious. I didn't realize how old the movie was now, too. I believe it came out in 2001, which, God, how the time flies, right? Unbelievable. But Super Troopers was amazing. It was the crew is called Broken Lizard, and they've went on to do quite a few movies since then. I don't think any of them nearly achieved the same status that Super Troopers has, that sort of cult following. I'm not even sure if Super Troopers did like amazing in theaters, but it was probably one of those movies that was just really passed around a lot at like college campuses and just was hilarious. And I love Super Troopers. It's a great movie. There's so many good lines in that. It really was well-written comedy. But like I said, I mean, these weren't famous people when this movie came out. So the fact that they not only successfully pitched, this idea to a studio, got it made, got a nationwide theatrical release is like just really incredible. So just one of those really rare stories where that works out and the movie's good. So, if you don't know what Super Troopers is, it's just like a kooky bunch of state troopers that basically are all a bunch of, screw-ups. And it's just comedy. Basically, comedy ensues because you see how, horrible at their job they are, how they're just trying to prank people they pull over. They don't have any interest in actually, getting work done, which is funny. But let's get into the characters themselves. So we've got Arcot, Thorny, Ramathorn, and this is actually the director of the movie. So very funny. So his card, he encompasses all three of the main colors that I've made the state troopers in this set. So he's a green, a white, and a blue, and I believe he's the only mythic too. And he's sort of the leader of the bunch too, I would say. The highest ranked of all of them. And he at least wants to do some work. He still goofs off like the rest of them, but just not as much. So he's three colors. He's a 3/3 first strike. He has the mechanic of the set, which is called Bust. And Bust is whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player reveals a card in his or her hand at random, then untap this creature. So, State Trooper, find stuff, bust them. You get the idea. And I've coordinated, a lot of them have triggered abilities that relate to when something's revealed or untapping. In this case, it's whenever Arcot, Thorny, Ramathorn becomes untapped, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So if you see how his ability works, he attacks. Let's say he deals damage to a player. Because he has first strike, he untaps, and then you can buff one of your other creatures +2/+2 before they deal their combat damage. So he's actually very powerful, which is why he's a mythic. Next we have Robert Rabbit Roto. I had to look up these names too, but they actually did write in full names for these characters in the script. So Robert Rabbit Roto, they just call him Rabbit. He's sort of the newest member of this branch of the troopers. and he gets into his own hijinks, of course. But they tease him a lot, and they make him do work he doesn't want to do. But he's a green and a white for a 3/2 legendary human creature, a rare. He has bust as well, and he has tap, add green to your mana pool. So when he deals his damage to a player, you get to see a card in their hand, untap him, and use post-combat. You could still use his activated ability. So definitely was deliberately done that way. Next we have McIntyre Mac Womack. A lot of Macs in there. Yeah, he's a funny trooper as well. He's one of the crazier ones, and certainly gets up to a lot of hijinks. So he's a colorless, a green and a white for a 3/3 rare human creature. He has bust, and whenever an opponent reveals a creature card from his or her hand, you may have McIntyre Mac Womack fight target creature and opponent controls. So he's getting in. The troopers get into fights with the local police very often, hyper competitive. They hate each other, which plenty of comedy ensues from that. And Mac definitely gets in some fights with them, so I wanted to. And I believe he even gets in fights with them over a bust, so it's kind of perfect for him. But I think this card would actually be pretty good in green and white. I mean, if you're playing against a creature-heavy enough deck, you could definitely have Mac fight a couple times, get some damage in. So next we have syrup drinking contest. This is definitely early in the movie too, but Ramathorn showing Rabbit a syrup chugging contest that they do. So this is a black and a green sorcery. It's a common. Target creature you control and target creature an opponent controls each get -0/-1 until end of turn. Those creatures fight each other. And then the flavor text is a quote from Mac. "What's the matter, Rabbit?" Or "What's the matter, Rabbit? Your mother teach you to chug?" So they, yeah, I can't imagine chugging an entire thing of syrup. That would definitely make me sick to my stomach and probably puke. And I'm positive they did not actually chug syrup. I think that's gotta have some. It's gotta have some long-term effects. I don't think you can chug. I don't think you can chug an entire bottle of syrup and start walking around like nothing's happening. Next we have Rodney Farva, the Ramrodder, and Rod Farva is probably one of the, if not the most memorable character from this movie, because he's the biggest idiot on the Troopers. He's dumb. He makes mistakes all the time. He's cruel. He's a combination of just, I don't want to say cruel, but he's like a traitor. It's like everything bad that you would not want in your trooper is like embodied perfectly in Rodney Farva. So he's a white and a black for a 1/3 rare human creature. He has bust, and whenever an opponent reveals a creature card from his or her hand, each player loses 3 life. So he punishes everybody in the game. And his flavor text is, "Want me to punch-size your face for free?" And that's when he's having a problem with the kid working at a fast food place that he's attending, of course. He gets into problems with a lot of potential people, citizens they're dealing with, much to everybody's chagrin. Next we have Jeff Foster, the Meower. And Jeff Foster is kind of the main character of this movie. It's tough to say. There's not exactly main characters in this movie, but Jeff Foster is one of the, he ends up hooking up with Ursula from the local police department. So he's sort of one of the love interest characters in the movie. So he's a white and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human creature. He has bust, and whenever an opponent reveals a non-creature card from his or her hand, you gain 1 life. So he gets to bust and kick back some life for you, so definitely good. Next we have Captain O'Hagan, and this is played by Brian Cox, one of probably the most famous person in the movie, actor-wise, and I'm sure they were happy they got Brian Cox for this too. So Captain O'Hagan is 1 colorless and 2 white for a 1/4 legendary human creature. And you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, gain 2 life, and other white creatures you control get +1/+1. So he's the captain. He's buffing all of the troopers, of course. And Captain O'Hagan's very funny. He's got a lot of good lines. And he knows his police department is all screw-ups, or his troopers are all screw-ups, so he's just trying to salvage what he can and get everybody to keep their jobs. And he's hilarious. He's alcoholic, gets really angry. His flavor text is, "I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy who says shenanigans." And yeah, he's got some great lines. Next we have Deranged Confidence. And this is 1 in a white instant. Target creature gains Indestructible and Intimidate until end of turn. And it's a picture of Mac with a bulletproof codpiece on. And he is testing the codpiece to see how bulletproof it is. And they do shoot him directly in the crotch. So the flavor text is, "Bulletproof cup, huh? I invented this gag, rabbit. Only in my day, the rookie got naked. And we also used blanks." That was from Captain O'Hagan. So yeah, apparently Mac wasn't using blanks when they shot him directly in the crotch. So he certainly had some deranged confidence. And it was supposed to be like he gets intimidated because it's pretty intimidating if you think about it, that some guy would actually let someone shoot him in the crotch just because that would never fly. You could never convince somebody to do that. If you were off by just like the littlest bit, he would have gotten blasted. So yeah, don't try that at home, kids. Okay, next we have Johnny Chimpo Marijuana. So they end up raiding, and this is a successful bust. So this works hand in hand with some of the bust effects if you were to reveal it. But Johnny Chimpo Marijuana is 3 colorless and 2 green. It's a sorcery, uncommon. As an additional cost to cast Johnny Chimpo Marijuana, you may sacrifice any number of forest cards, and you gain 1 life and draw a card for each forest card sacrificed this way. So I like the green cards that draw cards, and this one makes you sacrifice forest cards. So there's definitely, and pay 5 mana. So there's quite a bit of like downside to this, but even just late game sacrificing in limited, like 3 forests or something, drawing 3 cards and gaining 3 life could be very useful. So I think it works. And finally we have Chief Grady, played by possibly the second most famous person in this movie, David Von Bargen, who is now passed. But he had all sorts of gigs in his career, not the least of which Seinfeld. And Chief Grady is the evil sort of chief of the local police department. And you find out, of course, the police department is in cahoots with the drug dealers. So, yes, Chief Grady is the main bad guy. He's 1 colorless, 2 black for a rare legend human creature. He's a 1/4. He's basically the black counterpart to Captain O'Hagan. And you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, target player loses 2 life, and other black creatures you control get +1/+1. So I suppose if you had 4 Chief Gradys in your opening hand, you could make your opponent lose 8 life, but then you would also have 4 legendary creatures in your hand, which might not be so useful. 4 of the same legend, that is. So that is it for this week's episode and my Super Troopers custom Magic set. I hope you enjoyed it. I like making the mechanics that sort of don't necessarily function amazingly well on their own. They like do something but not insane, and then the actual abilities on the card sort of interact with that mechanic. So I've done that a few times now, and for me that's the most, I don't know, I get the most satisfaction out of that. I'd like to see more mechanics. And actually, I think the idea for that came from Outlast, from Khans of Tarkir, because there were a couple of Outlast cards that are few, actually, that it's like when you Outlast, they get a bonus for having a +1/+1 counter on them, or in the case of like Herald of Anafenza, when you use its Outlast ability, you get an effect. So I like it when the mechanic like lines up with an ability the card gets. Okay, that's my rant. I hope you've checked out the Travelers of Storia video. You can see that at www.travelersofstoria.com, my board game. I'm currently in the process of editing a multiplayer game, so I plan on putting that up on the website. Please get involved on the forums at travelersofstoria.com, and I'd be happy to field any questions you have there. Okay, thanks. We'll see you next week.